All right. Hey, everybody. This is Enrique Acosta Gonzalez with DTLW Podcast. And I am starting something new on Thursday afternoons, 4 o'clock Eastern. Now, I will caveat this first edition with the fact that I live in Orlando and we just went through a hellish night. And by hellish, I mean hellish. Winds were catastrophic, to say the least, and there was a lot of uh, uncertainty, right? Uncertainty as to how the night was going to go, uncertainty as to what was going to happen here locally, and definitely uncertainty as to the state of our, you know, Florida, right? Florida in general. There has been, as seen on news, a lot of catastrophe, loss of life. I was fortunate as well as my family fortunate that we did not suffer in any major disaster. Thankfully, our power was still on, and we thank God for the mercy in that manner of being able to go through this and still be okay. So for those fellow Floridians that I know and love and had to go through this as well, I hope that you are all okay. And I hope that if you did suffer loss, property, that it will be replaced in time. And if unfortunately you lost a family member in this system, this hurricane, my heart, my prayers, my thoughts are with you as you go through this period of time in your life. And just wish everybody safety as you go through the rest of this week and rest of this month. Um, the season is not over. And as a meteorologist, I'll tell you, I'm already looking ahead to about 2 weeks where there's some indicators, even today, that something else may occur in the southern portion of Florida, but I'll leave that to the now professionals to address. I'm just giving my educated thoughts, right? Educated thoughts around what I already saw today. All right. So, what are we doing Thursdays, 4 p.m. Eastern? Is that I want to get into the current episode that I just had with Ileana Acosta. This is my way of bringing in a little more added value to the podcast. Also, allow folks to come in and join the live stream and be able to get in the comments about the information that we covered in the episode. If you have not caught that, I encourage you to go to YouTube. Please help us by subscribing. We are on the hunt for 800 subscribers. We're about 730 right now. Thankful for that. 70 more in order to get us to 800. Well, what happens at 800? Not only do we reach a milestone, but we also have a book giveaway. So each guest that we have on the podcast, they have been gracious enough to provide their authored book, and they have signed it for a lucky person that be selected from the 100 that subscribe between every milestone. So it's a good thing to be participatory of, and you get a book, right? Or at least a chance to get a book. One person gets a book, and it's signed by the author, and they're all leadership specific books, right? So anyway, in this episode, we were going over leadership and advertising, right? The digital advertisement, but also how to elevate the Hispanic community as we are celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. Uh, our guests are centered around that community, and Ileana was with me She was in and is she was in digital advertisement, but she is now with LinkedIn as a senior manager, and she shared some great tidbits on how what she thought about the correlation between the two and the Hispanic community. But I started off by asking her about strategies that organizations can implement to develop more Latino leaders and create pathways for their advancement. And as we were going through, the questions, she was able to elaborate. I want to hear what she says and then take a pause and go from there to address some things that I observed after having that conversation with her. So I hope that you are, if you are listening or joining us, Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, by all means, get in the comment section. Let us know that you're joining us. We would love to see you participate. But as we go along each question, I'll be able to break it down a little more, or at least give you my thoughts around the question. So here we are asking Ileana about strategies that organizations can implement to develop their Latino leadership?
I love that question. First, I'll say it's interesting because I personally know the need for these types of programs within organizations, right? Like I grew up in a family and a household that was like, you should be happy for what you have, calladita te ves más bonita, right? So you should be happy with the seat that you have, don't ask for more, etc. And so that on top of, our different lived experiences have shaped us in a way that is very different from our non-Latino counterparts, and so there is a more concerted and intentional effort that needs to be put on the Black and Latino community within organizations, right? And things.
Now, I want to talk about that phrase that she started off with, calladita te ves más bonita. It says, basically, translation is, um, the more you are without a voice, right? The more you are without speaking, or the less you speak, the prettier you are. And boy, I don't know about you, but I even say that, and there's something that builds up inside of me, and it's not good, right? Because how dare someone, and this is cultural. Now I'll tell you that in the Hispanic culture, um, and I'll tell you, she's Dominican. I've heard this from Mexicans. I know it from Puerto Ricans. For some reason or another, males must have made this up, but it's propagated. It is continued to be said, and when I think about this, I'm like, what audacity are you to tell me that the less I speak, the prettier I am? And now this is something that obviously is more spoken to women in our culture, but shame on those that even repeat that, because I've seen a lot of strong leaders that are female, and there's nothing but pride when I see that. Now, I will tell you that sometimes I see a lady that is trying to mimic a man in leadership, and that doesn't work either. But when a woman is fully in her power and fully acknowledges what she brings to the table, there's nothing better than to see that. Because I come from a culture where they down women and they try to keep them in a position because for whatever reason, and they don't let them flourish like they should. And so when I hear comments like that, as a leader developer, oh boy, it turns me it turns me out. But let's continue.
Like developing programs that are specific to these organizations, taking into consideration the cultural nuances and the lived experiences of those who these programs are intended for. You mentioned around mentorship and sponsorship. It is really important and incredible if our organizations can devise mentorship programs to connect leaders within the organization with Latino talent within the organizations, right? That's info sharing, that's guiding them through their careers, that's helping them build confidence, letting them know like they're not alone within this organization when many times we feel like we're the only ones. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I've been in conference rooms and I am literally the only Latina and the only Latina woman in the room. And it does feel a little lonely, right? And so when you have these mentorship programs that allow you to learn from other leaders that have done this before, who are seasoned, or as you mentioned, sazonado within their careers, that are helping us establish our careers and also identify new paths for us, that really, really helps us. In addition to that, it helps us grow our community, grow our network, gain more sponsorship within the organization. It helps us become even that much more loyal to organizations because now we trust them because we realize the investment that these organizations are making within us, their intentional effort to support my development, my growth, my learning. And so as a result of that, increased confidence and that loyalty, you're going to retain me as an employee. You're also going to see me crush it, right? Because you're giving me all these tools and you're allowing me to learn these new skills to perform stronger. And so, developing these programs, whether that be skills development programs to help identify new skills, whether that be mentorship programs to connect leaders with other leaders, whether that be investing in learning and development through different courses or workshops that could help support the Latino community within your organization. I think these types of opportunities are opportunities that I for sure did not think I would ever have access to. And having had access to them later in my career, I see the incredible impact it has had on me and my career. And I almost wish I would have had access to that much, much sooner because I feel like I would have evolved even sooner. But it's a process, right? Like we're all on a journey. And I think part of these the advantage of these programs is to allow people to flourish on those journeys within the organizations.
Now, I just when she was going through, and she was specifically talking about mentorship, sponsorship, and the things in that realm. Now, I don't know. Now, obviously, speaking to the Hispanic community in this specific episode, but mentorship and sponsorship at large. But in the Hispanic community now, and I want to caveat this in terms of mentorship and sponsorship, right? Uh, we as leaders are charged to ensure that the next generation has a level of leadership that is worthy of their time, right? So what does that mean? I'm a current leader in an organization. I'm looking for my replacement. And a lot of leaders are not looking for their replacement. They're looking for longevity. And so as long as you're a leader looking for longevity, you can care less about mentoring and discipling or developing the future leader to take your place. And so there's a different mindset that you need as a leader. Now, because you're developing somebody else doesn't mean you're going to be without a job. You may move on to somewhere else, but it is our duty, it is our charge to ensure that the next workforce, the next generation workforce is and has leaders that are worthy to lead them, right? Worthy to lead them. Because a lot of times what we do is we take our best friends or those people that we're more likened to, and we try to give them a hand up, right? And what happens is that normally, because it's tied to that and not the potential for leadership, then what we do is we replace the current leaders with leaders that are not ready for those positions. And so what I try to do, and I encourage people to think about, is that think about the next generation that requires good leadership. when you're talking about mentoring and developing a future leader? Is that leader the type of leader, or can that person be the type of leader that is worthy of that charge or that responsibility? Because the people coming after us deserve great leaders, and it is up to current leaders to develop that. Now, the next question that we get into is around how companies can build more equitable and inclusive spaces that empower Latino talent. And I'm going to kind of kind of go forward on there to ensure that that is her part in answering this question. But what
Let's hear.
companies are really looking at?
I mean, the bottom line is what it's all about, right? I mean, companies that prioritize inclusion not only create a stronger workplace culture, but they also help drive innovation and improve employee retention, because I talked about that before, and using your words, positively impact the bottom line. Diverse companies actually see 2.5 times higher cash flow per employee, and diverse management has been shown to increase, I think the number is by 20% on average in terms of increasing revenue. So, for those who are thinking like, oh, it's not going to help, it's like, well, the numbers don't really lie, right? You can't fudge the black and white. And some companies are doing a lot in this space, fully aware of the impact of having a diverse and inclusive workforce. But there's others that are drastically lagging behind. And while I understand, especially in 2024, the last couple of years have been kind of crazy from an economic standpoint, there are a few things that companies can do to get started within this, right? Things like having inclusive recruiting strategies, right? Before even someone gets in, what are we doing to make sure that we're employing inclusive best practices when recruiting employees? Meaning, training and developing your hiring managers and recruiters to hire from diverse slates. Tap into new resources to gain access to diverse talent. And this is a big one. It's like, how are we eliminating bias when recruiting talent, which is huge. Things like, one of the things, I was the global co-chair of our Hispanics of LinkedIn Alliance, ERG, for a couple of years, and have been involved in the ERG space throughout my entire career at LinkedIn for the most part. But these employee resource groups are a huge opportunity to positively influence the culture of an organization. It helps drive retention. It helps promote belonging. You mentioned that before, belonging in the workplace. It allows an organization to celebrate the different cultures that exist within your organization. It helps to drive more confidence. It helps to upskill your ERG leaders and members. It helps to build more inclusivity, right? And intersectionality, celebrate intersectionality across the communities that exist within the company. I can go on. An employee resource group is definitely a passion point for me. But at the end of the day, like, employee resource groups are something that can be really small and start small and then grow from there. But it is a signal to your employees that you are committed to creating equitable and inclusive and a space of belonging for everyone in the workplace, even on a small scale, and then build from there. I think, also providing equitable access to opportunity and compensation. This is clearly an extra step here, but it's absolutely needed. The stats, I think it's when you have a Latina getting paid 53 cents on the dollar compared to our white male counterparts, that's an issue, right? How do we fix that? It's going to take for companies to regularly review compensation structures to ensure that Latino employees are compensated fairly and equitably across all roles. Is it an extra step? Yes. Will it take more, resources and time? Yes. But at the end of the day, pay disparities are a major factor in employee dissatisfaction and turnover. So if you address this, then you can significantly impact retention within your organizations. And so really at the end of the day, companies that invest in inclusive hiring best practices, leadership development, mentorship, and culturally sensitive practices, like ERGs and celebrating cultural moments, they create a thriving environment where Latino employees can excel. And that leads to greater organizational success, that leads to more Latino leaders in seats that we have not historically seen them in. And really, at the end of the day, driving a more positive impact on the bottom line, which is what it's all about within organizations.
Now, she started off with sharing some stats, and I'll be honest, I didn't know about the stats. I didn't know about the percentages and this, that, and the other. But she shared those stats, and I'm glad she did, because if I didn't go get it, I'm going to tell you right now, there's not that many companies hiring Latinos going to get that information to see how much they're going to be impacted by doing so. And so, my encouragement to companies and leaders listening today is that go get the stats, go get something that will prove the fact that it is beneficial to bring diversity into your workforce, not just for the sake of, hey, don't hire me just because I'm Puerto Rican. That's not, I don't want to do that. I want to be hired because I'm a professional. I want to be hired because I know how to do a job. I want to be hired because if you put me in that position, I'm going to make your company better, Puerto Rican or not, right? But if having added me for all the right reasons was good, and also there are stats that say that because, oh, by the way, you're Hispanic, Latino, or whatnot, that not only are you going to bring that to the table, your professionalism, your ability to do the work, but you're also going to bring in the ability to think of things diversely, think of things from the Spanish thought of mind, right? And a lot of people are trying to serve the Spanish community without having Spanish complements within their organization that can understand that community they're trying to serve. And so it makes sense to get your data, right, to be able to make those decisions wisely. She also mentioned about pay disparity, right? Female versus male, white male versus Latino male. There are differences, and I don't know if where they come up with those differences. If a person can do a job and they have the capability of doing the job, why are you taking into account anything else? Right? But guess what? This is how they do it out there. So what has to happen? The employee, you that are getting hired, better know your numbers. You better know your numbers. You better know the tactics. You better know how this world works and position yourself so you're not on the side of the disparity, right? And you're not working for somebody that's going to pay you cheaper than someone else, because it's not right. If you could do the job, you got the qualifications, I don't care what you look like. I don't care where you're from. The pay is the pay, right? And so you have to kind of put yourself in the driver's seat when it comes to pay disparity. And that comes through knowledge. Now, we continue on, and I'm talking about now, I'm asking about essential leadership qualities for guiding teams in the rapidly changing digital advertising space. Now, if you know anything that has changed a lot in a short period, it's digital whatever. Whether it's digital advertising or digital tools in general, it changes so fast that you have to have somebody telling you or be part of some type of group that is quick to divulge the next trend, the next thing, right? Because it's changing so much. And so let's listen to her, and I'll get into that section to see what she has to say in those terms. How can Hispanic leaders in this industry shape and influence new trends?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's a few that come to mind immediately, and that's adopting a growth mindset. It allows you to be open to new ideas, new methods of executing initiatives, being open and receptive to feedback and new ideas, as I mentioned, from team members. I think in this climate particularly is providing psychologically safe spaces for people and teams to thrive in, to be able to share those new ideas and new perspectives and new methods, to be able to build a collaborative and trusting environment, I think is huge for leaders to employ that and to foster that type of culture within their teams. People who feel insecure or anxious, that definitely doesn't bode well in terms of their performance, and they question their ability a lot. And so providing that psychologically safe space for folks, people can share more, be okay to fail quick. But also you have the ability to now actually coach people through these times, and not overlook things or say, oh, I'll address that later, but really coach people through skills gaps, and potential challenges that they may be overcoming. I think you mentioned before, around, think about it, people, in terms of companies, but it's that short-term pain, long-term gain. And I think that's something that we as leaders today really, really have to make a concerted effort to coach. I can't tell you how many people I've mentored or have led who didn't get constant feedback on how much more they could be doing or what they could be doing different or better, so that they can improve in their roles. And it really does take an intentional effort to coach someone versus do. That, coupled with having impeccable communication and collaboration skills, tongue twisted there, to be able to communicate effectively across teams, across your organization, across your immediate teams. Relationship building, I think, is huge, particularly now in 2024, navigating through ambiguity, because there's so many changes happening within the industry and across the world. And with that, we need to be able to adapt to change. And change management is huge. I am a huge fan of change. For me, change equals growth, and change is completely inevitable. And how you react to that change is how successful you'll, come out on the other side of that. And so I think all those leadership qualities are really, really essential for guiding teams today, in this digital advertising space, especially when you have new technologies that are coming out like Gen AI, and things like ChatGPT and Bard and all these different tools that people are using. If you are still thinking like 2019, you're missing out on a huge opportunity to really operate more efficiently, more effectively, and lead in a new way, because there's different generations that are in this workforce now, and having that first, quality I mentioned around growth mindset is huge. As Latinos, and as far as this Latina, my whole life was based on overcoming adversity and working with very little or nothing at all. And so that navigating through ambiguity during this time, the last few years, I very much adopted a mindset of do what I can with what I have, and not really cry over the things I didn't have, but more so, this is what I have. And so I think having that positive outlook also is a huge opportunity for leaders to adopt, to really find opportunity in every challenge, and find ways to reposition a challenge as an opportunity, as I just mentioned, and be able to, infuse new ideas into everything that we do to help keep up with the innovation, but also create our own strategies to overcome the adversity that we are facing in different industries, particularly with the economic climate the way it is. And so, I think that those are key that come to mind. I think growth mindset, change management, navigating through ambiguity. I know those are all could be challenging, but I see them as really huge opportunities for positive change.
All right, so let's discuss those three. So an open mind, a leader that does not have an open mind has already tanked their team. If you are closed-minded and you can't take anything on board as suggestion or anything like that, then you are setting yourself up as a leader and your people for failure. Hey, Laquita, good to see you. Yeah, we're all right. We made it. I answered your message. Thank you so much for checking in on me during this time. But So open mindset as a leader. If you don't have an open mind, start getting one. And if you need help, there's a lot of people that can help you, including myself. Now, let's talk about communication. Now, 6 years ago, I started this podcast, and it was all around communication. Most of I conducted a survey, and in that survey, communication came up on top in terms of what leaders needed. And I tell you, communication has not changed in over 30 years that I've been a leader. It has not changed. But it is also the one thing that we're most challenged with. So, if as a leader, you're not communicating effectively, or you're not communicating in a way where your people are thriving, you need to change that. Okay, hey, Enrique, everybody says they need to change this, they need to change that. Okay, communication is required to be a leader. Effective communication is required to stay a leader. And so, if whoa, boy, Laquita, I'm gonna put that on a t-shirt. But it's imperative, right? And so, change management. Let's talk about change management, because I think change management has been a big to do in the last 4 years, especially with the onset of COVID. But change management has been a thing leaders have been kind of working with or working around for forever, right? Because things change. And we're talking specifically here about digital tools. We're talking specifically here about things that are rapidly changing around it, and change management is something that you must have as part of your arsenal as a leader. And yes, I will do that, because that sounded good. I'm gonna have to replay it, because I tell you, it's like the Holy Ghost when he speaks. You're like, what did I say? Right? But I'll go back, and I will say it. So change management is something that you must harness as a leader. Who likes change? I don't think anybody likes change. If anybody tells you they like change, I don't know. But I do know that we need to be ready to change at a moment's notice if you are a leader. And you cannot buck up against the change. You have to look at the things and strategies around implementing that change for the benefit of your people. Now, so those are those three tips. It's great. And I came up to the next question, which was how Hispanic entrepreneurs can leverage digital tools to build their brands and businesses. Because guess what? Leaders, business owners, corporate executives, they don't know how to build their brand. Sometimes I've talked to folks, they don't even know what brand is. So this question here, and I'm going to cue it up to where she's speaking, so that she can answer that. But I tell you that it's important for you to understand that there is such a thing called brand, and you must own that. Coming up so instantly that we
Mhm.
can't hardly ever keep up with it. But how
No,
can Hispanic entrepreneurs leverage the digital tools that are out there to build their brands and their businesses?
I think it's a good question. I think about my dad, who has owned or did own a supermarket for 30 plus years with his family, and he was still doing everything analog. Okay, which is like even painful for me to even think about. Everything from payroll to inventory, what projects needed to be completed, accounting, de todo, right? He's since retired, but while he was at the supermarket, I was always try to get him to adopt new systems, and he totally refused. Have a little scanner to scan each item, digital inventory, and no, he was not about it, and he was just happy with what he knew, what he was comfortable with. But really, he was just not comfortable with feeling uncomfortable, right? It's again thinking about the short-term pain of like learning a new system, adopting a new way, adopting new tools. Uncomfortable for today, but essential for long-term growth. right? And so I think with that, as Hispanic entrepreneurs think about ways to build their brands, there's so many platforms and tools that you can leverage to reach your audience, to connect with them, to tell your story in a real authentic way, and to find ways to scale your business. And so depending on your brand, your product, your service, you can lean on some platforms over others. But there's one thing is for sure, and I know this from having entrepreneurs all around me. It's a lot. It can be a lot, particularly when it's like a lot of little things that you can find great ways to automate this, right? And so you tap into these different tools or programs that different platforms have now given access to businesses for, and it can exponentially help you operate more efficiently. So just think about it. Like, there are platforms like LinkedIn, not because I work there, but it's they give you the ability to reach over 1 billion professionals across the world. That offers an incredible opportunity to reach your audience at scale, and an audience that has buying power and decision making power. So huge, right? But if you're thinking as an entrepreneur or a small business, you're like, oh my gosh, I have to do all these things. I have to, manage my customers. I have to, reach out and send an email blast, or whatever your tactics are in order to reach your audience. But there are so many platforms that can help you automate these processes, improve customer engagement, manage your social media, help you streamline operations, and enhance collaboration, which are all clearly essential for scaling and growing your business. For example, I'll give you examples like platforms like Zapier or HubSpot, which are great for SMBs and entrepreneurs. They can help automate repetitive tasks. It can save you time and improve operational efficiency. And that's huge because, as I mentioned before, like, we are trying to do a whole lot with less, right? Because you don't have the resources of a huge global organization, right? So you're trying to do a lot of things with little time and little resources. Things like or platforms like HubSpot, again, or like a Zoho, can help you actually manage your CRM, which is great because now you can manage your customer interactions and your sales pipeline. And so I can go on, but there are so many platforms. The point is that there are tools that my dad would not use, but you can as an entrepreneur, as a small business. And we have to just recognize that we do not have to do everything manually ourselves anymore. In 2024, there are so many tools that for every little possible thing you can even imagine, you can leverage technology. And if it's used right, it can make the biggest difference in growing your business, in building your legacy as a Latino, as a Hispanic, and impacting generations to come, right? And these are things that you can pass down to your children, and they can pass down to their children. But it starts with now, and it's adopting that growth mindset and realizing that even the things that you didn't think could be automated or that you can get support on, you can have access to it with minimal to little investment in being able to adopt those tools.
Absolutely. And so when you're thinking about how you are having a relationship with technology as a leader or a business owner, you need to ask yourself the question, am I afraid of this, or am I going to be an early adopter and get through these things? Because as I mentioned earlier, technology changes on a dime. What you had today probably has a firmware update, probably has an update, probably is old. That's how fast things change. And so if you're a business owner, you're a leader or anything like that, and you are not having this kind of mindset of, hey, let's see about it, then what you could potentially be doing is putting yourself back in the caveman days in terms of business and leading, and then treating your people in an archaic way. Your folks probably know more than you do in terms of technology. And so if you're not that type of leader or business owner that gravitates to technology, then start seeing how to employ your people, to bring in your people into the mix so that you can capitalize on technology. Because You do not want to be caught left behind in terms of how easy it is to grab some of these tools and let them work for you. You know, there's a handful of tools that I use, and I'll name them here because I just used them. Right, um, iMovie. I use iMovie. A lot of people go the Adobe route. I'm happy with iMovie. Of StreamYard, right? Well, I'm streaming this right now on StreamYard. It's a tool. I use Headliner for my clips and Opus sometimes for my clips. I'm actually changing my clip making to a different organization and different platform, and I'll be sharing who that is shortly once we iron some things out. But they'll be my dedicated clip makers for the next coming year. And so these are tools and these are organizations that Canva, right? Canva. I do a lot on Canva. So if you're afraid of technology, you could be putting yourself in a position where you can't compete, right? And so think about that when as you're leading. Think about how much you're willing to get into the technology race, or if you even have somebody on your team that can do that for you. The next question was around empowerment, right? Empowering young Hispanics with the skills and resources that they need to succeed in their leadership journey. And this is more in line with how we're mentoring our future leaders, how we're getting them prepared for this next phase in their life, and how are we the conduit between where they need to go and where we are today, right? And so for leaders and business owners, the next generation is where it is at, although we are working right now. We need to invest early, we need to invest wisely, and we need to give them the best we have so that they can take this world to the next level, way past when we're gone. And so let's listen to what she had to say. Their leadership journey.
Yeah, it's a great question and one that I'm really passionate about. I just joined the board of Scholar CC a couple months ago, which is an organization that helps to empower young children of color within the South Florida region to gain access to mentorship and access to opportunity to really understand what kind of careers are out there and how they can also excel within their collegiate careers and journeys, to establish, what the future looks like. And it really falls in line with this: is empowering your young Hispanics to pursue careers in digital advertising and leadership roles. It really does require a multifaceted approach that focuses on early education, which is why I joined that board, because it is educating them early on the opportunities that exist out in market. It's not just things that maybe you grew up listening to, and me too, around becoming a lawyer or a doctor. It's what else is out there. Like, if I'm being honest, I never strived for a career in digital advertising. I was never like, I want to work in tech. That just wasn't on my bingo card. I was, aiming to be a doctor or a physical therapist, something in medicine. But then I started to become more aware of these alternate careers in high school, maybe like later, I think it was like junior or senior year. But one of the things that I wish I had access to earlier and that I actually sought out was mentorship. So it's that early education and seeking mentorship. You can get a mentor for anywhere, whether it be in school, a family member, a neighbor, someone who you feel like you trust and can support you on your journey. And this mentor also doesn't have to be across everything. It could be just within one vertical of your life, right? Skills development around developing leadership skills, communication skills, collaboration skills, key decision and effective decision making skills, and even public speaking. I was very nervous public speaking when I was younger, and I mean, sweaty palms, nervous, shaky, all the things. And now, because I do it so much, it just is very inherent to me. But as a young Latino and Hispanic navigating your career, it's really, really important that you tap into those skills that I just mentioned around communication and public speaking, and and collaboration, problem solving, and also emotional intelligence. Like emotional intelligence in bold, capitalized, italics, underline, however you want to say it, is going to be huge, because now you can really understand, you know, how to communicate effectively with someone, how to regulate your own emotions before responding, how are you showing up in the workplace, how do you want to show up in the workplace. And so, you know, whether you decide to work for a small or large organization, these are all skills that you'll need to tap into as a young professional to advance in your career. Those interpersonal skills, right? So you can communicate with folks at different levels. And so as it relates to the advertising industry or the digital landscape, you know, we talked about this a couple times today, but it's, you know, innovation is happening all around us. So what are you doing as a young professional to stay ahead of the trends? There's so many tools that you can tap into to help stay informed of those trends. But it's also, how do you tap into your cultural experiences to bring new perspectives when these trends are coming out? What are your thoughts and perspectives? What are the questions you have around this? What are your experiences that you can bring into conversations that you might be in? I say all this to say is that, you know, I keep on saying communication, and I say, you know, bring your perspective and bringing your own ideas, etc. But it's all about using your voice. I know early in my career, and even up until like maybe less than a decade ago, I did not use my voice, right? I would have a question or a comment, or I wanted to challenge something because it didn't make sense for what we were trying to achieve. And for so often, I would just be quiet. You know, it's like a seat warmer. And here I am at this conference table or room, and I just didn't have the confidence to use my voice. But I feel now with this younger generation, because we are empowering them with so many tools that they can learn, you know, what are the trends, they can learn new resources that are available. I feel like a different renewed energy and confidence that's instilled within them. And so I hope that we'll start to see even louder voices that are lending constructively to conversations and constructively to stories that we want to be told. And so I think that, you know, all those skills and all those things that you could be doing are what is necessary for young professionals. But I will harp on one last thing that I would be remiss not to say, is around relationships and networking. Relationships are everything. I can't tell you, most people that are in C-suite did not go online to apply for a C-suite role. They were leveraging their relationships to get indoors, and they did that by first networking, right? Networking everywhere you go. And I see, you know, I talk to some college students about once a quarter or so in different forums, and I see it happening more and more, where you're seeing college students realizing the power of networking, the power of relationships to help them understand the landscape and the industry. And in particular, there's so many different avenues you can go within the digital advertising industry. To help them advance. And so I leave you with that, is, you know, building all those skills, as I mentioned before, around, you know, in terms of capturing them early, getting mentorship, investing in your skills around communication and problem solving and emotional intelligence, interpersonal skills, but really build relationships, network like your life depended on it, but more is like network like your career depended on it, because it really is a lot of times of who you know versus what you know, but having the combination of both makes you like almost superhuman in many cases.
Yes, indeed. So obviously the future workforce is coming up right now, right? They're coming up right now. The future leaders are coming up right now. And if you are not in a mentorship relationship, you are missing out on tapping into the history of leadership, right? Leadership is going to keep going. It may take on a different flavor. But right now, leadership is structured in a way where if you don't get mentored, you can't get that background. And so if you're a young Latino or young Latina out there and you're trying your hand at things and it seems like you're not getting anywhere. Well, guess what? Have you looked into mentorship? Did you know you could ask somebody to mentor you? As a matter of fact, I never liked getting appointed a mentor. I never liked that because there's no telling if there was any compatibility whatsoever. But I sure learned how to pick my mentors and have them. I have 5 mentors, one mentor below me. And what does that mean? Part of this generation right now, growing up, have a mentor that's younger, that's in everything, that can speak the language of today and stay abreast of what's going on. A lot of older people don't like to be told by younger, but I'm telling you, if you don't have a mentor that's younger than you, below you in terms of age and experience, you are missing out and can easily be unrelatable, right? Be unrelatable. And so a leader at 50 years old that is unrelatable is no good. So get somebody under you, right? I have one that's at my level, someone that's doing things what I'm doing, because now I can bounce ideas off of them. They can bounce ideas off of me, and it's great. I have one above me, meaning at my next immediate position. Where do I want to be in my next immediate position? And then I also have one that is at the future me, right? At the future, someone that is way down the road, probably in a dream that I would like to be in or whatever. And you have to do that. You have to at least have these 4 positions filled in terms of your mentorships, because that gives you a good roadmap ahead and at least a good conduit to that future that you want to be in. And when you talk about uh, your voice, your voice in the Latino community, we have been often kind of like we started this conversation. Calladita te ves más bonita. The quieter you are, the prettier you are. That's a shame. But there's a lot of us, even males, that have subscribed to that. And we go around life not allowing our voice to be heard, not allowing us to be representatives of our own desire. And what happens is we end up with whatever it is that they got for us. And oftentimes it's probably not in our best interest nor to our benefit. So your voice matters. I don't care if you're young, I don't care if you're middle aged, I don't care if you're old. Your voice matters, but you have to own that voice. You have to own the fact that you are the best person to represent you and what you want out of life. And if you can't do that for yourself, do not expect anyone to be able to do it for you. There's a saying that we often say in the military: no one is coming to rescue you. That's the mentality you have to have, because there may be a lot that champion us. There may be a lot that will put us out there in the world and our name out there. But no one's going to champion you like you. So find that voice if you don't have it. And if you have problems or trouble getting there, by all means, you can book some time with me and we could talk about that and how to get you to where your voice matters, especially as you're progressing in leadership or your professional life. So this is what we will be doing Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern. It is a different way of going about my podcast, but I thought it was important to kind of break down the answers to the questions in the podcast, and also kind of go through a little more commentary for those that are listening and don't even know that I have a podcast, right? So I hope you enjoyed this last hour. I will tell you, I am beat. Didn't sleep well because of this hurricane here in Orlando. Uh, Nerves was everywhere. Busy working for the last 3 days, putting up boards, taking boards down. All of that. My hands hurt, but it's part of the deal, right? I live here in Florida. It's part of the deal. I am tired, so I am glad this is over. But I also wanted to be committed to my word. And thankfully, I do have power and was able to achieve that. So the schedule for DTLW podcast is as follows, right? The video version of the podcast is released Mondays on YouTube at 4 p.m. Eastern. The audio version is released on Tuesdays, 5 a.m. Eastern. And then we have this discourse, breaking down, if you will, of the podcast commentary on Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern. So that is the schedule. I hope that you can join me in either one of those. Please help us by going to our channel at DTLW Podcast on YouTube and help us by getting us into the realm of being able to get to 800, right? We're after 800. It would be our honor to have you subscribe and be part of the DTLW podcast family. These speakers that you see behind me are those that spoke and represented the leadership community in 2024. I will say here now that 2025 is fully booked. I am waiting on one confirmation to tie the knot on that, and it is our final episode in December. So all of 2025 is booked. So thank you to all those that have accepted and will be with me in 2025. We are on the last 2 months, basically, of speakers that will be coming up. I say about 8 to 10 other episodes for this year. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for supporting us. If you have not subscribed, we will greatly appreciate a subscription at on YouTube at DTLW Podcast, and you'll find us there. Folks, it is the end of this Thursday edition of DTLW Podcast episode wrap-up. I hope that you enjoyed this commentary. Please let me know in the comments if this was beneficial to you and how we can make it better. God bless you all. God bless all my fellow Floridians that just went through the storm along with me. For those on the coast, God bless you and have mercy and protect and continue to provide for you. I know there's a long road ahead. For those of you keeping your eyes on the future, in 2 weeks, there's indication that there may be something else going on in southern Florida. So I hope not, but that's what the models are showing as of today. God bless you all. Thank you for joining me. And we will see each other next Thursday for another episode wrap up. God bless you all.